Hey Amarillo. I'm Skylar Gallup, and you are listening to Hey Amarillo. It's the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. We record every week at Amarillo College's Innovation Outpost. The I.O. supports education, workforce development, and industry growth by inspiring and facilitating innovation in the Texas Panhandle. Today's guest is Dr. Nick Gerlich. Nick is a professor of marketing at West Texas A&M University and has been for quite some time. His entire career in academia, in fact, has been in marketing, and his body of work and expertise on the matter is impressive. Nick is also a travel enthusiast, adventure finder, and lover of Route 66. We talk about all those things, and I found it very interesting to learn some more of the history of the historic Mother Road that you might not always get on, well, the billboards. Here's Nick. Dr. Nick Gerlich, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Skylar.
Glad to talk to you.
Likewise.
So we like to start with where you're from, and I'll say I was really surprised to learn that you are not from the area because so much of your body of work is really like kind of focused on the Panhandle history and Route 66. So you're not from here.
I grew up in Chicago, actually born on the north side. I don't have any memories of it whatsoever because my parents up and moved when I was 1 and moved to the south suburbs. And so that's where I spent all my formative years, first in Harvey, Illinois, and then Lansing, Illinois. Harvey is kind of a rough place now, but it has the distinction in pop culture history of being where the famous Blues Brothers movie shopping mall scene was filmed. I grew up going to that mall, and it hit a rough patch and wound up just going belly up. And Hollywood came with a checkbook and rented the place and then totally destroyed it. But So every time I watch that movie, I am whisked back to my childhood.
That's lovely. So what brought you kind of from Chicago? I think academia was kind of the road that brought you down to WT. Is that correct?
That's correct. I did all my schooling in Indiana. I guess I'm a kind of a part-time Hoosier, if you will. I mean, I claim Illinois as my native state, but I spent 12 years in Indiana, and I grew to love it there. I did my undergrad at Anderson University. I was kind of an overachiever. I studied a lot of marketing and economics, as well as religious studies. Being a private school, there was lots of religion classes I could take, and I was fascinated about it, and I learned quite a bit. And then I went off to Indiana U for my MBA and my PhD. And by that time, I had had about enough of the North. It was too cold, too cloudy, and I said, I'm only looking for jobs south of the Mason and Dixon line. And I was being very true about that. I mean, honest, I did not want to stay in the North anymore. And so I just got out my map and started looking for schools in the old Rand McNally Atlas, because they always had the schools there in little fine red ink.
Oh.
And I found West Texas State University. I've been to Amarillo. Actually, I had family here, and so my family had come here 3 times, I think, as a kid to visit aunts and uncles and cousins, but it was all a distant memory at that point. But anyway, I said, I'll give this a shot. And I sent off letters to WT and a bunch of other schools. Wound up going to a marketing conference in 1988 in San Francisco, where I had arranged to have a bunch of interviews while there. And that's where I met my former boss here at WT. And he liked me, and they created a position just for me back then. I don't think we can do that these days, but they made one back then, and I came. I mean, I had other offers, but WT was the best, and I have zero regrets. It was a very, very wise choice.
So when you were studying in Indiana, was it your plan to become a professor of marketing?
Absolutely not. I went there to get an MBA and then go the corporate route and make lots of money. And well, as it turned out, when I finished my MBA, December of '82, we were still in the midst of a pretty big recession, and nobody was hiring. A lot of my classmates were not able to find jobs either, even with an MBA from a Big Ten school that finally these days is actually pretty good in football, as it turns out. And so I said, well, what am I going to do now? I guess I could just stay in school. And so I entertained the idea of a second master's degree, one in market research at the University of Georgia. Got accepted there, but I also said, well, I better double down here on Indiana. So I applied for the PhD program, got accepted, took a drive to Athens, Georgia. It's a pretty cool town. It's about as cool as Bloomington, Indiana. But I decided in the end, I'm going to make a career shift here. And so I went the academic route, knowing that with a PhD, I'm going to be a professor, not in in the C-suite or anything ever. And so I'm glad I did. I found my calling in the PhD program, and I'm so happy I chose that path. It was 2 days before my classes started in late August of 1983. Yeah, oh my, a long time ago. And I got a call from the PhD office, and they said, oh, by the way, stop by the office and pick up your textbook. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, you're teaching principles of marketing. And I said, what? And I had no idea. I was going to be literally thrown into the center of the arena with the lions all around me. I had to teach principles of marketing. I was just totally unclear on this concept that, a doctoral student would be teaching. I didn't think I was qualified enough yet, but apparently that's how it's done at big state schools. And they said, here you go, have fun. And I was scared to death.
So you were teaching undergrads.
I was teaching undergrads.
As a doctoral student in the fundamentals of marketing.
Yes,
okay.
And I know the first couple of months, there was more sweat coming out of the top of my head than was water coming out of the fountain in the center of campus.
Oh.
I was so nervous.
Of course. How big are the class? I mean, if it's a big school, how big was your class?
I had about 75. It wasn't.
That's plenty.
That was plenty. Yeah. It scared me.
Well, that's one way to learn how to teach a class.
Yeah, just be thrown into it. It's like somebody tossing you into the deep end of the pool, and you got to figure out how to swim. And so I did, and I fell in love with it, and I just kept going. And I'm in my 37th year at WT now.
That's wonderful. What are some of the early maybe lessons or like really valuable experiences from those first couple years teaching students?
Oh, you got to stay up on whatever it is that you're teaching. You've got to stay at least one or two steps ahead of your students. And so that meant a lot of preparation, and especially early in my career, because I did not have any teaching notes or lectures or anything prepared. I was doing my best to stay just a step or two ahead of them. And sometimes that meant, working diligently to get a lecture ready to deliver in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was tough. It's easier now. That doesn't mean I just pull things out of the file cabinet and blow the dust off of it. No, I don't do that, but I know how to do it now. And I'm constantly acquiring new things to talk about in class, always looking for examples. I keep notes on my computer all the time, things I could talk about or write about, and it works much better now.
Well, and in the realm of marketing, so you still teach marketing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is it kind of always been marketing classes? Have you dabbled outside of marketing or?
Just marketing.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
So
qualified.
that industry changes extremely quickly.
Yeah.
And so, I think even more the reason or obligation, in fact, to really stay on the cutting edge, to do a service of your students, to serve them appropriately.
I have to be looking for new examples all the time to keep it fresh, to keep it current, because they don't want to hear about new Coke back in the summer of 1985. I mean, that's a great anecdote to share now and then for historic perspective, but I can't use that as my centerpiece. I need to be talking about what Amazon is doing this week.
Yeah.
What Walmart plans to do next week, and that kind of stuff. It needs to be current.
Yeah, I think also because we are the recipients of the marketing that is occurring right now. Like I am receiving whatever it is that Amazon is doing this week. And so to be able to dig in, in an intellectual way, you've got to best that.
And it's no small task. It means I'm constantly spending time every day.
Yeah.
I got my websites that I go to, the usual suspects, and I'm trolling, literally looking for information, things I can talk about, things I can write about in my blog that will keep the students current. And hopefully in the process, I will impress upon them their need to stay current. because, snooze, you lose.
Yeah.
If you don't know what's going on around you, someone's going to, take your lunch.
Yeah. What is it about marketing that has kept you? I mean, you can tell in the way that you talk about it now. It has kept you very intrigued, very interested for you're coming on 4 decades now. Certainly, if you include your own schooling, what is it about marketing that keeps you in it?
Oh, it's always changing. That's what I love about it. And it's also a place where creative people can thrive because marketing depends on creativity from product development all the way through the advertising and social media that companies use today. I joke all the time that there's a reason why I'm not in accounting, which is what my dad was. Accounting is the profession where creativity will get you 6 to 10 years, in the slammer. But marketing, you need to be creative and you're rewarded for it.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it about WT? Because you're not a panhandle boy. You could have, taught for a couple years at then West Texas State and then jumped up to a bigger school or gone somewhere else that's south of the Mason-Dixon line. What about WT has kept you here for almost 4 decades?
I think it's the perfect size. I know there's some who would love to see it much bigger, and if that happens, that's fine. It hasn't in 37 years. We've been between 6 and 10,000 that whole time. To me, it's a very comfortable size. My undergrad was 2,000, and when I was at Indiana, it was 35,000. It's much larger now. 2,000 was great, and I got to know everybody there, students, professors, everybody on campus. But you can only do so much, when you're really small. But on the other hand, when you've got 35,000 or 50,000 or whatever, you're truly just another data point.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for that either. I wound up my last few years there at Indiana team teaching the principles of marketing class. They restructured it and put it in massive lecture halls. I literally walked in, clipped on my lavalier. I felt like Jerry Seinfeld. That was my job, to be funny and tell marketing stories.
Right.
I taught 250 people at a time.
Wow.
And then when I was done, I took off my lavalier and walked out the side door, and that was it. Didn't get to know a single person.
Yeah.
But with what we've got right now, I get to know my students, whether it's face-to-face or even online. I get to know in a little different kind of way, but yeah, it's easy, much better. I like it. It's a good fit.
I found that WT was a perfect size for me as well. I think I would have been swallowed up at Tech, but it was big enough to have enough extracurricular opportunities to kind of build out a resume and get some leadership opportunities. I agree there. What are some cool things you've gotten to do at WT? You've been department co-chair, and your CV is so impressive, the amount of work that you've done in that, and just kind of scrolling through some of the titles of the papers that you have written and co-written and all of your work. What is some notable things that you've been able to be a part of at WT during your tenure?
Well, I really like all the research I've done. I know that a lot of academics pick one thing, and that's all they do their whole life. I can't do that. I want to feed or eat or whatever at the smorgasbord of academic inquiry. And so I find something that interests me, I study it, I write papers with colleagues, and then I move on to the next cool thing, whatever that might be. And that has kept my career interesting. I've worked with some amazing colleagues through the years. I would say they're all far better than I am. I brought what I had to the table, and we threw it all together and made something really good out of it. But I'm a better person because of all the people I've been able to do research with and write papers with and all that. And so that's probably the biggest enjoyment right there. But I cannot overlook my students too, because each semester is different. I got a different group of kids or adults in the case of my graduate students, and they all bring very interesting things to my table as well. I tell them that the learning is a two-way street here. You're not just learning from me. I'm learning from you, and I'm just as much a student as you are. My job ultimately, though, is just to make sure everything kind of stays orderly and issue a grade at the end of the semester. But I do love learning from them. Here's the beauty of social media. I am friends with so many of my former students, going all the way back to that first year, which is hard to believe. And so I keep in touch with a lot of my former students, which now numbers in the thousands of people.
Right.
But it's just kind of fun to be able to say, I remember when back in 1992 you were in such and such class, and yeah, we have good shared memories.
Yeah. And I bet it's pretty neat to see what your students go on to accomplish.
Oh, yes. There are some who have done far greater things than I could ever have hoped to do, and I'm so happy and proud of them for doing that. I think it's great. One of the metaphors that we use, a couple of my colleagues and I have shared this, is we like to put our fingerprints on the students. And it's a metaphor, obviously, not to be taken literally, but it's kind of like a student comes to you, they're like a lump of clay at the beginning, and you get to put your fingerprints on them while you mold and shape them.
And that age for, I guess, what we would call a traditional college student is such a pliable and really critical time. I look back, I've talked about it on the podcast with different guests at my time in WT's broadcasting department, and it fundamentally shaped not only who I am as a professional, but just a human, and I credit that partially to the quality of the broadcasting department at WT, but also just like that time in your life, it really matters who is metaphorically putting thumbprints on you. You know what I mean? It's a great impact, in fact.
Well, I look back on my own undergraduate years, and I can think of 2 specific professors who left their fingerprints on me.
Yeah.
And I talk about them to this day.
Yeah.
That was, 45, almost 50 years ago.
If you're starting or growing a small business and need some cash, let me tell you about Amarillo Venture Capital. They are a Hey Amarillo sponsor. They're locally owned, and what makes them different is they don't just invest in businesses. They invest in people. So whether you need $5,000 or $50,000, they offer flexible asset-based loans, often with funding in a week or less. And it's not just the money. They can connect you with their local network of legal, accounting, and business resources to help you succeed. Check them out at amarilloventurecapital.com. So you have a whole lot of academic research and published papers and like a whole lot. You also do a whole lot of writing that's more public facing in sort of the areas I know that you're really into, like Route 66 history and Panhandle history, which I think is really fun to learn about. I think that's when I've seen most of kind of your forward facing work. When did you pick that up? Where did that bug come from? Talk to me a little bit about the inception of that part of your professional work.
Well, before I decided to study marketing, my dad, the accountant, had pulled me aside. I was a junior in high school, and at that time I had aspirations to be a journalist because I loved writing. And my dad said, "Son, you need to go into business. There's no money in journalism." And I think he was kind of right.
I worked as a journalist for a little bit. Your dad's not wrong.
Yeah. So I said, "Okay, Dad." And my senior year of high school, I signed up for the DECA program, which placed you in a job, and then you had a class like 5 days a week where you studied very, very fundamental aspects of business, not too deep, but just enough to be dangerous. And it was in that job, I was a delivery boy for a mom and pop office supply store in Lansing, Illinois. That's when I decided, I kind of like this. I liked retail. I liked interacting with customers. I liked interacting with all the merchandise. I got to learn how it came from a wholesaler, how we checked it in, how the retail price was determined, how we put things on the shelf and for a reason and all that. I learned pretty much everything there was to know about running a small mom and pop office supply company back then. Mm-hmm. That place went by the wayside soon as the first Office Max came to town. It was game over at that point. But I learned a lot, and it's what caused me to go on to college and major in marketing, and then get an MBA with an emphasis in marketing, and then a PhD in marketing.
Yeah.
So here I am. I know a whole lot about one thing.
And so your work writing, how did you get into Panhandle history? Talk about some of that, like public facing publishing that you do.
Well, see, you can't kill a writer. I had that in my DNA. I still loved writing, even though my dad said, you need to go into business. I decided, well, I can still write. I can still have fun with that. Let's see if I can figure out how to use this in business, in marketing. And so for my students now, since about 2005, I started writing a blog about marketing things, whatever's going on. And so this is coming up on 21 years here. There's millions of words I've written, and students have to respond to it. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. Oh, well, that's my prerogative, I guess. That's how I like to teach the class. Rather than just hammer home a bunch of boring principles, I'll tell them, you read this stuff. Now, read this stuff here. It's about how these things come to life. And this is what's going on in the real world, not the textbook world. And so I get to write. I still get to write for my students in my blog. And then for real fun, I write for several magazines. And I enjoy doing that. It's a nice break from everything else that I'm doing. And so locally, I have a column in Brick and Elm magazine, and it's travel related, which is another big thing that I like to do. So I get to do all the fun stuff, and that's the beauty of it all. I write for Route magazine, and it's primarily Route 66, but more importantly, it's about road tripping in America. And so a lot of the places that I'm writing about, the people and so forth, yeah, many of them are on Route 66, but not all of them. I have interviewed some really cool people all over the U.S. To go into this magazine. I've also done a lot of writing for New Mexico Route 66 magazine, and when Panhandle magazine was still being published here by News Channel 10, I wrote for them as well.
What is it that you enjoy about writing about travel in, it seems like in kind of like the Southwest?
Well, I get to tell stories, my stories in many cases, where I've been, the things I do, the photos I've taken. I've done some pretty crazy things. I love adventure, and it doesn't matter where. I'll find a way to make an adventure out of it. But put me out in the desert, put me in Badlands, put me in the mountains, I'm definitely going to have fun. And if there isn't a trail, I'll make one.
Yeah, we're here for the crazy things. Let's hear them. What's some of your cool adventures?
Oh, man. Let's see. Last year, I climbed my fourth 14er. I know I'm a little slow or a little late to the party here on that, but I will do more. It was, Bierstadt, and that was, a little bit over 14,000 feet. At that point, who cares, right? If it's over 14, that's all that matters.
That's right.
And it was great fun. I started in the dark. This was July. I started at 5 a.m. You got to start early on the mountains because of the monsoon season.
Yeah, the storms come in.
Afternoon storms, and it's bad news. You want to be off the mountain. So I started in the dark at 5 o'clock. It was below freezing at Trailhead, even in July. So I'm bundled up like an Eskimo. There was frost everywhere. It was surreal. And to watch the sun come up over the mountain, it was absolutely beautiful. Made it to the top, saw a bunch of beautiful white mountain goats up there. And there were a lot of other people on the trail. It was just a big party.
That's so fun.
Yeah, you would pass them, they'd pass you, and exchange, words of encouragement and things like that. It was just a big party. Everybody had the same destination, the top. We got there, we took turns standing on the top boulder, taking each other's pictures, and then come down and then give words of encouragement to those still coming up.
I do some hiking too, and I really agree. Everyone's always so happy. Even if you are dead tired, just really beat to hell. You're so happy. Everyone's happy to be there,
I experienced a similar thing on the Manitou Incline. Same trip. There were days apart. The Manitou Incline is 2,768 steps that go up. It was formerly a ski lift, if I'm not mistaken, and that got taken out about, 12, 15 years ago, somewhere around there. And Colorado Springs, the city, put in these railroad ties, and basically it's a stairwell. It's not even. Sometimes the rise is a lot steeper than the previous step. I think the highest incline, you're at 68%. It's steep.
That's rough.
Really steep. And But here's the nice thing about it. You don't have to be fit. You don't have to be a marathon runner or, a star cyclist or anything like that. This is, it's kind of like the Volkswagen of hikes, because I saw all kinds of people doing it. Young people, old people, fit people, not so fit people, but everybody seemed to be making it. And when you got to the top, there were high fives all around. It's like, congratulations, you made it. Didn't matter if it was your first time or your 500th time, whether you did it in 30 minutes or 3 hours. It didn't matter. You just did it. And that's what I loved about that. I want to go back and do that one again.
Yeah, I really like I said, I'm a hiker, and I am no marathon runner. I am not like a CrossFitter. I am just like an able-bodied, middle-aged human. And I think that hiking sometimes is more about your determination than it is perhaps your physical strength. And I sometimes I tell people that I hike with, like, it's really just because I'm stubborn. I'm just stubborn enough to say, like, I am going to get to the top of that mountain. Gosh darn it. And it really is a test sometimes more. I think some of the harder hikes that I've done, you did like a hike in Guatemala on a volcano, and it was 70% a mental game, and that's what got me to the top of the mountain, was my determination, not so much that I, lift weights or, run a bunch of cardio every day or anything. And I love that about hiking.
It gives you a chance to just get out and commune with nature. I don't mind hiking by myself. I mean,
Me either. I love it.
I love doing it with friends, but I don't have a problem being alone, and I don't get lonely. I'm deep in thought, or maybe I got podcasts playing on my earbuds, but I'm out there just enjoying, and that's the most important part. There's one other place I got to tell you about, the Misty Wilderness, which is in northwest New Mexico. Not many people know about it.
Misty?
Misty.
Yeah. I don't know.
You got to go. There's no trail. Follow your nose, but there's a lot of great things to see. It's badlands, kind of like what you see in South Dakota, but there are badlands in a lot of states.
Yeah.
And New Mexico has a lot of badlands in the north.
Yeah.
This is an amazing place to hike. I recommend finding a good map of the place online. There are Google Maps out there people have made. I've made one, but I follow some other ones that are even far better than what I could put together. Download it to my phone, because the cell service kind of stinks out there, but your GPS will still work on your phone.
Okay.
And I literally just follow my blue dot on the screen until I get to a pin that I can see on the screen that is some point of interest. And the points of interest out there will blow your mind. There are rocks, big round boulders that have cracks in it. It's called the hatchery for a reason, because it looks like where a bunch of giant eggs had just hatched. There's some petrified wood out there. There was actually a forest there, who knows how long ago, thousands of years probably. The Badlands they're beautiful. It's like walking into one of those 1970s era terrariums that your grandparents might have had in their house, with the different colored sands and everything. That's what this looks like. And so I love going out there. I've been out there several times now, and I can't wait to go back.
I love New Mexico. I've spent a good amount of time. I always say that if I ever have any amount of wealth, I would retire on a big old ranch up in like northeastern New Mexico. Is where you're talking about near Petrified National Forest?
It is probably about 3 hours northeast of it. Misty Wilderness is about 45 minutes south of Farmington.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the Shiprock area. So you're way up in the northwest corner at that point.
If you live in Amarillo, we talk about Route 66 a lot, just like because it's here. Or like maybe we think about 6th Street, which has had this like beautiful revitalization in the last couple of years. And of course, we're doing like the Big 66 Festival, and all that stuff is wonderful. I had never like actually kind of like quote unquote done Route 66 until last summer. My sister and my children and I drove to the Grand Canyon on Route 66 and like stopped at all the places and did the whole thing. Talk a little bit about like what interests you, what you enjoy about it, what is special about, I guess we call it the Mother Road.
Well, I can blame my dad for this too, because he loved to regale us with stories of his guy trip back in the summer of 1955.
Oh, gosh.
He and two buddies, all bachelors, piled into my dad's brand new Chevy Bel Air, and they drove from Chicago to L.A., came through Amarillo.
That's the road.
Yeah, 3 days. It's like, gee, Dad, you must have been speeding.
Yeah, that's a lot of miles in 3 days.
It was primarily a 2-lane road at that point. And they made it to L.A. in 3 days. But he loved to tell stories about Route 66. And since I grew up in Chicago, I was, I don't know, maybe 30 miles from Route 66. But we got on it often enough as a family that I got to know about it a lot. It became the road we took on a lot of family vacations because it went to St. Louis and then beyond. And so that was what we took. And when I was a really young kid, Interstate 55 wasn't completed thoroughly, like from Chicago to St. Louis. There were sections done, sections not done. You had to get on, get off. Same thing coming across, like from Oklahoma City to Amarillo when we'd come to visit family. We had to get on and off the freeway because it wasn't all finished yet. Like, for example, in McLean here, just east Amarillo, that wasn't done until, I don't know, around 84. So it was a long time in the making. And so you had to get off and take Old 66. And so that planted a seed. And it was around 16 years ago, I remember 2010, when I decided, okay, I'm going to study this now. It took me a long time to get with it, for that seed to sprout and start growing, but it did. And the first thing I did was ride mountain bike from Glen Rio over to San Juan. It was a very small section, 18 miles, on the old dirt road, which was Route 66. And when I did that, I said, wow, this is amazing. And I've got this right in my backyard.
Yeah.
So then I just started going all the time. Now, the biggest question I had doing Route 66 was, which way do I want to go, west or east? Because I'm here pretty much in the middle, between Chicago and L.A. And so it's which way do I want to go this time? And so I went east many times. I went west many times. I've covered every inch of what is presently drivable. About 85% of Old 66 is still drivable if you know where to look. I've also covered a lot that's not drivable because, well, it's behind gates and fences and things like that, and we won't talk about that too much, but I've been there. And it's just amazing. When I am out there, I'm not just looking for American history and stuff, kind of listening for my dad, if you will, because I know he covered that.
Yeah. When would you say Route 66 was like in its heyday?
Oh, the 1950s.
It was the 50s.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, the post-war era.
Okay.
The economic boom. This is when road tripping became a thing. It's when car culture really took over in America.
What caused that?
Well, it was all part of the prosperity, I think, that happened after the war. Everybody wanted a house in the suburbs. They wanted a family. Everybody had to have a car in the driveway. So it just kind of all came together at the right time. After the war, when things settled down, we just took off and everybody got a car, and it's like, now what do we do with it? Well, let's go somewhere. And with the coming of the freeway, which many of us Route 66 enthusiasts kind of bemoan,
right,
it just encouraged even more travel in general. It just made it easier and easier for people to go places. The network of highways just kept getting better and better, and so we could go somewhere. Whereas when Henry Ford was stamping out Model A's and Model T's, roads were not that prevalent, and even when there were roads, they were pretty lousy roads. They were dirt in most cases, and if it rained, you got stuck in the mud. So it was very difficult to take long road trips, like for a family vacation or something. you just didn't do it. You took the train maybe instead. But as our economy grew and we all got cars and houses and garages to put the cars in, we just adopted that as our new lifestyle. And so the 1950s were the big era for this. Mom and pop motels flourished back then. They were either in like a long, I'm using my hands here to show you, a long row of rooms, or sometimes in an L shape, and then also in a U shape, so that there was like a courtyard effect, and you could all see each other, and your cars were all there, and you parked right outside your room, and you didn't have to carry your baggage in through a lobby or upstairs or an elevator or whatever. You had maybe 12 feet to take it from your trunk to your room. That was a great time to be alive, I'm sure.
Well, and that's the pictures, I think, that exist in all of our heads about Route 66, or the neon signs and the cool hotels with like the kind of like not quite yet neon, the pastel colors. You know, it was, I think, on the cars, as well as kind of in the aesthetic of like commerce along Route 66 is from that time.
And there was so much more of a design aesthetic back then. A lot of mom and pop motels would have some kind of a theme for their building, so it stood out. It was a little different from the next one down the street. And the neon signs were that was their marketing campaign right there, to have a sign that lit up at night, maybe had some animation that would catch people's attention. You know, we didn't have Google Maps and smartphones to tell us what to do. We relied on seeing signs when we're driving. Maybe we'd see a billboard 30 miles down the road, but when we got into town, we're looking for the signs. And the signs are all saying, over here, come here, spend the night here with us. And then the guy down the street's like, no, spend the night with us. And it was a very different kind of environment for being in business. And each of these places were unique looking compared to the big box hotels we see today.
Yeah.
It looks like they all borrowed the same architectural plan.
Totally.
And they're dull and boring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have more brand following. You know, like you stay at Hilton because you get your Hilton points. You stay at Hyatt because you get your Hyatt points. You know, it's not because of, you know, this one looks more interesting on our road trip. Let's pull off the interstate or Route 66 and stay the night here.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I've got lots of points and everything, but I've never once said, you know, that's the prettiest Hampton Inn I've ever seen.
That's right. How do you think that Route 66 changed cities like Amarillo, like in that heyday, in the 50s? How do you think it changed communities along the way?
It brought commerce. And in fact, when the highways were being formed 100 years ago, everybody wanted the road to come through town.
Yeah.
They really didn't want bypasses. They wanted you to come right through town because the chances were good you're going to spend money. And so that helped a lot. The freeway era changed all that because it allowed them to build bypasses around, and we could just zoom by at 60 or 70 miles an hour, and we didn't have to spend money if we didn't want to. Mm-hmm. So in ye olden days, it was a great shot in the arm for local economies because you had constant flow of transients. That sounds bad. Tourists. We are transients when we're traveling, but we are just passing through, but we have needs. And basically at that point you realize what the three pillars of tourism are: gas, food, and lodging. And so every town to some extent offered those things. Some did better jobs than others. Mm-hmm. It's possible even now to go to a lot of these small cities that were on Route 66. They've been bypassed, but you can see the shell of their former existence, like there's an abandoned motel or an abandoned gas station or something like that. You can see, even to this day, what some of those things looked like 80, 100 years ago.
Yeah, sort of the relics of Route 66 is now what that experience is, you know.
And those of us who do Route 66, we live for this stuff.
It's beautiful. It's lovely to see, but I think it probably many people, certainly the communities themselves, would love it if they weren't relics, you know. So so I asked you kind of what contributed to the rise of Route 66. Is the freeway what contributed to sort of like the shelling out?
Unfortunately, yes. Route 66 has the distinction of being one of very few U.S. highways that were ever decommissioned. That's like, basically, it was off the books. And it was decommissioned in 1985 when the last section of freeway was developed around Williams, Arizona, which is where you would have turned north to go to the Grand Canyon. At that point, the government decided we didn't need Route 66 anymore. We got the freeway here. We can just stay on it. And what they didn't realize was when they decommissioned it, it's like telling somebody you can't do something. That makes you want to do it all the more. And by the late 80s already, there was a small movement afoot to, let's try to preserve this Route 66. It may not be what it once was. It may not show up on our maps and atlases as a 66 in a shield. But it's still there, and we can learn from it, and we can promote it and use it as a tool to encourage appreciation of history, of culture, all those great, noble things. And to this day now, it keeps growing and growing. 2026 is the centennial. It's the centennial of all numbered federal highways because they all came into being in 1926, November 11th. Yes, 66 was just one of them, but it was the most storied of all the federal highways.
And I think, fast forwarding to this year, really, and in previous years, as communities all across 66 have been ramping up for the centennial celebration, it feels like there's a pivot to, instead of like honoring the history or preserving the nostalgia, reinvesting, in fact, in historic Route 66 along, to your point, along the roadways that we're able to. The tourism board in Amarillo, I mean, this is huge for the economy of Amarillo, the number of people that are coming in. If you've attended the 66 celebrations in years past, it's huge and really very successful, but like not as much even from a historical appreciation, but like this is a currently living and breathing thing to experience.
Right. It's not dead yet. And I don't think it's going to be dead anytime soon because people keep seeing that there's some future here. It's not just about the past.
What do you think is driving that? What do you think is behind a desire to reinvest or kind of see the culture that lives kind of along Route 66 revitalized?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say that nostalgia plays a big role in a lot of people's travel plans along 66 because depending on your age, you either want to relive some of the things you did as a kid or experience what maybe your parents or grandparents
Find your dad.
did. Right, exactly. So I want to do those things. But I think also people are just realizing that if there are tourists, there are business opportunities.
Yeah.
So we need to go where the people and the money are. And I think people are beginning to realize that.
Do you think it'll work?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to see a big spike in tourism in 2026 because of the centennial, but I think it'll keep going after that. It may not be at the same height as this year. It's a big deal to have a centennial, of course, but let's say the 120th year, which will be in 2046, I think people will still be doing it. And they'll maybe have different reasons, but they'll still be doing it. Maybe we need another Cars movie, too.
Yeah, that helped, right? Does your marketing feel like a shot in the dark? Are your social media posts getting lost in the scroll? Unlock your business's potential with SKP Creative. They know your audience and design posts that reflect your brand and drive real engagement. From scroll-stopping social media content to powerful traditional marketing, graphic design, and website development, SKP Creative covers it all. Are you ready to elevate your feed and turn your marketing into a success story? Visit skpcreative.com today. I am back with Dr. Nick Gerlich. Nick, this is the part of the show I call 8 Straight. I've got 8 thought-provoking questions for you. Excited to hear your take on them.
Let's go.
When you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
I would like to see a city of at least 250,000 people, which is 47,000 more than we have right now, because along with it, it will bring new businesses, new amenities that we don't have that are more typical of cities that are 250,000. There's a lot of corporate chains that don't even know Amarillo exists because we're just not on their radar. We're not big enough yet. An influx of newcomers to town will put Amarillo on those corporate radars, and I think by virtue of that, we'll get better shopping opportunities, restaurants, all those things, and hopefully an arena that we could use to have big name performers at. I hate having to go somewhere else to see a big concert. I'd like to see one right here.
Yeah, that definitely has been a topic of consternation in town for quite a while. When was the last time you went to Palladora Canyon?
6 days ago.
6 days ago. Wonderful.
And it would have been less than that had there not been a snowstorm and a cold wave. But otherwise, I go all the time, like 3 or 4 times a week.
And do you hike out there? Do you bike? Do all of it? Bird? What do you enjoy doing at the canyon?
I hike and I do a lot of photography.
Very nice. Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
Comfort food. I am a fan of discomfort food. I like to try new things. And that's what I like about the big cities. I look for things that I haven't had that before. And I want to keep trying new things, expanding my horizons. When I see something come to town that's new, that's different, I'm there. You know, we've got Mediterranean food now. Hallelujah. I think that's great. We're getting better. We still got a way to go, but as our diversity continues to grow, so will our range of restaurants.
I love that. So what does this area not have enough of?
Let's see. I would like to see more Japanese food, Korean food. I know we've got some in that area, but we need more. I am fascinated by the sudden growth in Indian food. We got 5 places in town now. That's fantastic. I love Indian food. We can't have enough. And, you know, you can't just say Indian food and think it's all lumped together. No, there are many different regions of India with different cuisine. And so I like to try those things. One of my favorite places in the Metroplex is Sri Lankan. And that is some of the most amazing food I've ever had in my life. I hope and pray we can get one of those someday.
What is your favorite local building?
The Herring Hotel. I love that place. That opened December 31st, 1926. So it was only a month and a half after Route 66 became official. And it was right there, half a block off of Fillmore. So it basically overlooked Route 66. I've been fortunate to been allowed in 4 times to do photography through the years. And I've scoured that place from basement to the roof. I've had a blast up there shooting it and everything. And now that it looks like this might happen, the renovation might become real, it is going to become the crown jewel of Amarillo again.
It's very exciting. I've just been in the lobby and up on that on that second floor, and it is beautiful. And I also am very excited for its potential renovation. What is your favorite local restaurant?
I got to split this in 2. Amarillo and Canyon. Now, for Amarillo, I love Yellow City street food.
Yep.
I love having lunch with the hippies. They're just great people, and I love going there. And I love how they serve omnivores and herbivores alike. It's like they split the menu in half, and meat eaters stay on the left side, and vegetarians and vegans stay on the right side. I think it's great. Love all, serve all, right? It's a great mantra. But down the road in Canyon, Pondicetta Pizza Company, I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to Canyon, and what they did with that 1925 depot is absolutely amazing.
And both excellent examples of wonderful locally grown businesses that have created whole communities.
Absolutely.
I think it's wonderful.
I try to stay away from chain restaurants.
Totally. Okay, Nick, you've got 4 hours to spend in Amarillo with someone who's never been here. What are you doing?
I'm taking them down Route 66, and I'm going to start all the way on the east side take them through Amarillo College East, because Route 66 once went through there.
Okay.
Actually, the original Route 66 went right through where the airport is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Route 66 is now covered by runway in places.
Which you could drive. It would just be very illegal.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Frowned upon.
They don't like people crossing over that fence. So I would start on the east end of town, go down the boulevard, show some of the buildings that are still there, that have been there for ages, some of the old motels, restaurants, things like that, and then show how they are still very much alive. We've got a thriving international population on the northeast side of town, and the businesses and restaurants to prove it. Mm-hmm. So I would show all that, then come downtown, show what's going on there, and then head out on Southwest 6th and show what's going on there, especially between Georgia and Western, that magic mile there of all the cool antique shops and dive bars and restaurants and coffee shops, all those fun things.
Yeah. And then even as you get a little bit west of town, I think it's more sort of kind of those relics that we were talking about, but you can see some really cool old buildings up kind of north of 40 on 66. Nice. That sounds like a lovely 4 hours. Finally, Nick, what do you think people get wrong about Amarillo?
I think that many people, especially those people downstate, see Amarillo as an outpost town that's just down the street from the North Pole. In fact, they only hear about us when it's going to be brutally cold here. It's like, oh, up in Amarillo, it's 10 below zero or whatever. They never talk about Amarillo, except when the weather's bad. And other people consider Amarillo to be a flyover town. We're out in the middle of flyover country, and we're just one more little speck that you can look down and see from 35,000 feet. And I just disagree with that. I think Amarillo is a diamond in the rough, and it's just going to keep getting better. I'm happy I came.
Wonderful. I really appreciate your enthusiasm about the town. That concludes 8 Straight. I like to end by asking my guests or offering my guests to endorse something. What is something that if a listener is not already aware of, what would you make them aware of?
I have to endorse Palo Duro Canyon State Park. That is my playground, and everybody knows it's there, but it's this great thing that hardly anybody around here goes to.
Yeah.
And this became apparent to me in the last few months when I was able to hear some numbers about this. The park had 353,000 visitors last year. I think it's still the third most visited park in the state. But about 80% of those visitors are from outside the area, like 3 or 4 hours away. Well, I talk about this with my students all the time. That means only about 20% of the visitors are from around here. Okay, so if you take 20% of 353,000, that leaves about 70,000 visitors were from here. But what's the size of this metro area? It's about 275,000. So that means only 1 in 4 persons from around here is actually going to the canyon.
Once a year.
Once a year.
Yeah.
But even that is not true, because you've got people like me with a park pass. I've been 80 times in 9 months. I got my money's worth out of that annual pass. I'm down to like less than $1 a visit now. When you've got people, hardcore people who go there all the time, that means the number of people who haven't gone at all is pretty large. And that bothers me. It's like, we got this gem out here in our backyard, and you don't have to be a hardcore hiker or mountain biker or anything like that. You can just go and enjoy. You can camp, you can picnic, you can do whatever you want. Just go to the visitor center, the overlook, and enjoy how pretty it all is. But I don't think we take advantage of that enough. And so really my whole philosophy of life, and I try to impress this on my students, is #GetOutside.
I love that very much. Dr. Gerlich, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Looking for the perfect date night? The Amarillo Symphony presents Romance at the Symphony, featuring the passion of Romeo and Juliet, the excitement of West Side Story, thrilling music from Gone with the Wind, plus soprano Sarah Beckham Turner singing beloved opera arias. It is perfect for this Valentine's season. Tickets at amarillosymphony.org. That concludes the episode. Thank you to Dr. Gerlich for the interview. Thank you to Venture Capital, SKP Creative, and the Amarillo Symphony for supporting the podcast, and to Broderick Adams for editing every week. And thank you for listening. This has been episode 435 of Hey Amarillo. I am Skylar Gallup, and we hope you'll come back next week.